Black Hollow, a quiet town in rural Ohio, had always been the kind of place where nothing truly bad ever happened. The biggest headline in the local newspaper for years had been about a school board dispute and a runaway cow that wandered onto Main Street one summer afternoon. Life there moved slowly, predictably, almost stubbornly. People went to work, mowed their lawns, and waved to their neighbors. But in the fall of 2022, something began to disturb the delicate balance of that routine. It started with a smell. Sharp, chemical, metallic, spreading through the hallways of an aging brick apartment building on Eldman Road. Some compared it to chlorine. Others said it reminded them of wet concrete after heavy rain. A few swore it was the smell of blood. The odor seeped from beneath the door of apartment number 47, where a quiet, unassuming man named Lucas Hardy lived. Lucas had moved in 2 years earlier, kept mostly to himself, and worked long hours as a remote IT technician. He was polite, but distant, the kind of tenant landlords loved, paid on time, never complained, never made noise. When the complaints became too frequent to ignore, the 911 dispatcher sent officers to perform a welfare check. Captain Raymond Hill, a veteran officer in his early 50s, arrived first. He had seen plenty in his decades on the force: drug labs, hoarders' dens, domestics gone wrong. But something about the smell made even him uneasy. Beside him stood his new partner, Officer James Campbell, fresh out of the academy. They climbed to the 3rd floor. The air grew thicker with every step. Campbell pressed a sleeve to his face. "Sir, is that? Smells like a mix of bleach and something else," Hill muttered. "Stay sharp." He knocked on the door of number 47. "Police, Lucas Hardy. If you're inside, we need you to come to the door." Silence. But then a faint, dragging sound from within, like wood scraping across old floorboards. Hill and Campbell exchanged a look. "Again," Hill said, louder this time. "Police, open the door." No response. Hill stepped back. "Breach it." The lock snapped after one hard hit. The door swung open slowly, revealing a darkness thick enough to swallow the hallway light. A wave of odor rolled out, so strong that Campbell gagged and stumbled back. Hill pulled on his mask and entered. Inside, the apartment looked frozen in time. A half-eaten plate of food sat on the coffee table. The TV was on, but only showed static. Windows were covered with layers of black plastic. And then they saw the wall. On the wall facing the entrance were dozens of sheets of paper, each pinned with a tiny silver thumbtack. Each sheet contained the same phrase, written in shaky black ink. "He watches me at night." Some notes were written neatly. Others were scrawled frantically, letters uneven, ink smeared as if written with trembling hands. Campbell whispered, "What the hell?" Hill motioned him to stay quiet. That dragging sound started again, closer now. It came from the bedroom. Hill approached the half-open door, pushed it gently, and flipped the light on. Inside sat a man, thin, pale, eyes sunken deep into his skull. Lucas Hardy. He was on the floor, pulling a wooden chair back and forth across the room, forward, back, as though the action had some ritualistic meaning. His lips moved silently, mumbling words only he could hear. Hill crouched slightly. "Lucas, you're safe. We're here to help you. Can you hear me?" But Lucas's gaze was fixed not on the officers, but on the far wall. Hill followed his line of sight. Every inch of the bedroom wall was covered in photographs. Hundreds of them, all of one person. Harold Pierce. the 63-year-old man who lived upstairs in apartment 51. A retired engineer, widowed, mostly kept to himself. In each photo, Harold stood at Lucas's door, staring directly into the pier hole camera. Sometimes he was close enough that every pore on his nose was visible. Sometimes he stood farther back. Sometimes he leaned his head slowly, as if trying to peer inside. But the most disturbing photo was the last one in the sequence, located dead center. Harold Pierce, inside Lucas's apartment, stepping toward the camera. Campbell stepped back instinctively. "No way. This can't be real. How did he get in?" Hill's face tightened. They had to check Harold's apartment now. Apartment 51 was unlocked. Not broken into, not forced open, just unlocked. Inside, everything was oddly clean. Too clean. A single wooden chair stood in the middle of the living room. Hill's stomach dropped. On it lay a folded note. Campbell read it out loud. "Now he's watching you." For a moment, the entire building seemed to fall silent. Even the old pipes stopped groaning. Hill ordered a full search, but there was no sign of Harold Pierce. It was as if he had walked out of the building and dissolved into the night. What they didn't know yet was that Harold had not disappeared. He had already been gone for weeks. The next morning, detectives, forensics, and mental health specialists crowded the building. Lucas was taken to the hospital. He was dehydrated, malnourished, and in a state of severe psychosis. But every time the doctors tried to speak to him, he repeated one sentence. "He comes at night. He stares. He knows I can't move anymore." Detective Sandra Miller, known for her meticulous nature, took the case. She reviewed every photograph Lucas had printed, over 300 images, all time-stamped from the pier hole camera. The earliest photos showed Harold standing in the hallway, expressionless. But then something stranger emerged. In several images, Harold's clothes did not match what neighbors recalled seeing him wear those days. In others, Harold seemed thinner, and in one photograph, date-stamped a week after Harold was officially last seen alive, his eyes appeared completely black. But the timestamp wasn't wrong. The metadata was clean. Sandra felt a chill. Something didn't add up. 3 days later, while searching the building for new evidence, Campbell noticed something strange in the basement. A locked utility room that didn't appear on the landlord's blueprint. Hill cut the lock. Inside, they found another wooden chair, a small desk, a stack of blank photographs, a broken pier hole lens, and dried, dark stains on the floor. But the most disturbing find was a collection of handwritten journals, all signed Harold Pierce. Sandra opened the top turnoff. The last entry was dated 2 months before Harold disappeared. "He stands at my door again, every night, closer. He knows I can't stay awake forever. I told the landlord to check apartment 47, but he doesn't believe me. No one does, but I see him. The man with no face." Sandra froze. The man with no face? She turned the page. "I set the camera. I need proof. If something happens to me, tell them to check the basement. He comes from the basement." Sandra felt the air around her tighten. Harold wasn't stalking Lucas. Harold was hiding from something else. And Lucas was hiding from the same thing. 2 days later, technicians finally accessed Lucas's home security system. It contained months of recordings. One video, recorded late at night, showed Lucas asleep on the couch. The hallway light suddenly flickered. Then the peer hole camera activated. A figure stood outside the door. Tall, thin, head tilted unnaturally far to the side. The shape resembled Harold Pierce, but the proportions were wrong. Too long in the torso, too stiff in the joints. The figure leaned closer, closer, until its entire face filled the peer hole. But there were no eyes, no mouth. Only a stretched, pale surface shifting like wet clay. Campbell recoiled from the monitor. "What the hell is that? That's not Harold." Sandra exhaled slowly. This is what both men saw. They weren't hallucinating the same thing by accident. They reviewed another video. This time, the figure entered the apartment. The door never opened. It simply appeared inside the frame, standing over Lucas as he slept. 5 minutes later, Lucas woke screaming. The figure turned its head with a sickening, slow twist, then vanished. No distortion, no fade. One frame, it was there. The next, gone. The deeper Sandra dug, the more disturbing the pattern became. 10 years earlier, another tenant of the building had complained of a similar entity, described as a tall man without a face. The tenant vanished, case unsolved. Before that, in the 90s, 2 kids living in the basement apartment told their mother they saw a shadow man standing in the laundry room. The family moved out within a month. The building had a history of disappearances, break-ins without forced entry, and bizarre sightings that police dismissed as urban legend. Sandra no longer believed it was coincidence. Something had been in that building for decades, watching, waiting, feeding. Despite exhaustive searches, Harold Pierce's remains were never found, but blood samples from the basement matched his DNA. He had been there. He had died there, but not the way they thought. Sandra reread Harold's journals, piecing together his final days. He heard something in the basement. He saw something moving behind the pipes, something that looked like him, something that watched him sleep. He tried to warn Lucas. Lucas became the next target, and everyone who had seen it, truly seen it, began to lose their grip on reality. A week after Lucas was hospitalized, he began to speak coherently again. His first words were, "It's still in the building." He told Sandra that the entity mimics the appearance of the last person it killed, at first imperfectly, then more accurately. It grows stronger the more fear it absorbs. The last night Harold saw it, it no longer looked like Harold. It looked like Lucas himself. Sandra reviewed the final video from Lucas's camera. It showed Lucas asleep, then another Lucas, standing at the foot of the bed. The figure leaned down, inches from Lucas's face. Then the screen cut to static. The building was evacuated. All tenants relocated. The owner sold it within months. Police documents labeled the case as mental breakdown, possible serial trespasser, insufficient evidence for homicide. But Sandra knew the truth. Some nights, when she worked late, she reviewed the footage in her office. In one of the last frames, barely noticeable, a pale figure stood behind her reflection in the monitor's glass. Tall, expressionless.
head tilted to the side, watching, waiting. And then, one night, when Sandra came home and checked her door camera, someone stood outside. A tall figure, silent, motionless. It looked like Harold Pierce, but its face was hers.